Strap in and get ready.
The leaders in NRL Supercoach are incoming. Bringing you the ultimate insight to help you win your leagues and climb up the rankings. You're now listening to the Insight NRL Show with your hosts, Brain, Mattrix, and Whisperer.
Yes, welcome back. You're watching the Inside NRL Show, and we're talking centre wings today. It's going to be a long one, so get your coffees, get your beers, get whatever you need to get through the next couple of hours, because we've got plenty to talk about. I'm your host, the SC Brain, and my co-hosts, the SC Whisperer and the SC Mattrix, are with me. Matty, how are you, mate? What's happening in the world of Mattrix?
Oh, look, I'm excited for some weekend footy, I suppose, coming forward. So NBL Supercoach is over, so yeah, I'm throwing myself into the NRL now. I've sort of you guys have been carrying the load a little bit, but I'm back, baby.
He's back. Love that. How are you going, Josh?
Firstly, the last position podcast we did, the top comment was we need to remove the bias and get rid of the Alex Twal intro. What's going on? Why is it gone?
Because we need to change it up every now and again. I think it's fair that we go through. Maybe we change the intro whenever there's a good moment.
All right, maybe we should put Nathan Cleary's try in the grand final as the next one.
Yeah. All right, I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. That works well. Matrix has disappeared off the screen, so that's fantastic.
On purpose. He was talking about Nathan Cleary's try.
just rage. I'm good, mate. I'm good. It's been a while since we've done a position podcast, but got a lot of good feedback on the beginners pod. But yeah, back into the nuts and bolts of strategy, which is going to be nice.
Yeah, big position too. It's a position we probably, I don't know, it's fair to say maybe with 2RF, the most variety I think that I've seen across teams. So, and there's a lot of traps in centre wing, especially the cheapies, and we'll talk through them very soon. But guys, before we do, the show is brought to you by the Standard Squeeze, Ryan from Astute Newstead and Bonus Bank. Make sure to hit subscribe and like if you like the content. We would appreciate it. And follow, review if you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple, Google Podcast, or wherever it is you get your audio pods. And lastly, join our Unlimited League. It's free to enter. You can win at Supercoach Champions Ring if you come first in the group. You can also win a weekly prize if you're the top scorer. The code is 777-141. Pretty easy to remember, 777-141. Boys, let's talk through. Shout out to Mattrix for doing these notes, because I tell you what, this wouldn't have been a fun one. There's 16. We'll talk through the 16 most owned players. Funny number. Where'd 16 come from?
The 16th player come along, and I just felt like it deserved a discussion. We agreed on 15, but it was only like point something of a percent. Yeah, look, Rubes needs to be talked about, because I need to ward some guys off him.
Yeah, fair. That's probably a worthy conversation to have. Boys, the most owned, we'll kick that off with Ethan Strange. We covered him in the 5-8 pod, so we won't talk about him again. If you want our thoughts on Ethan Strange, you can head back and watch the 5-8 pod that Josh and I did a week ago. Burbo, 277k, Josh, 36% owned, for a good reason. There's been plenty of word out that Schuster obviously is struggling with his fitness and his conditioning. I think he busted a finger, and during that rehab, he then twinged a hammy or a calf for the 4th time in 3 years. There's a lot going on in the world of Schuster, so Burbo is the recipient of hopefully some starter minutes.
Yeah, Burbo's that cool band. Well, for me, he's that cool band that you discover before everyone else. I've had him since basically day one. When he was like 3% owned, I was always confident that he'd get the start, but I'm glad he has. I think he would have won it on merit, just regardless. I think the whole Schuster thing, it's just not worked out. Unfortunately, I think when that contract's up, they'll move off him. I feel bad for Schuster a bit. I don't think the money that's being reported is what he's on. I have a strong feeling that that's incentive. I think it's the Luke Brooks syndrome, where the media will just report the max that he can earn based off all incentives. So I think he does cop a bit there. But for Burbo, he's always had that potential. His last name is Travojevic, so injuries have plagued him a bit. But he's looked every bit of a football player when he's been fit and given the chance. And obviously we saw him beat up on a bunch of children a couple of weeks ago, scored 3 tries, looked great, didn't look great in the last trial, but near bottom dollar, that golden dual position that we talk about, 2RF center wing. On that edge, going to be swinging off his brother, going to be swinging off Brooksy. I think there's going to be a lot of potential for him playing inside Kohler as well, who's going to get a lot of attention. not really much analysis to give. He's 277k, and mate, by the way, the team lists for trials week 2 were dropped. Any cheapie that we can get, we'll take.
Yeah, and he's got that dual 2RF as well, which is nice to have. So I think he's almost a lock. 36% owned for a good reason. I think you just got to follow the crowd on that move. Is there any risk Mattrix with Schuster floating around in the background? Are you concerned at all about that Schuster might pop into this team and take some minutes?
Not really. You're really disappointed if you have Burbo, and then in round 3 or 4, when Schuster's healthy, comes in and takes some minutes off him. Probably not. He's probably done his job. He's had a good start. There's these 200k guys, which we'll talk about a little bit more. I think it's worth spending up and finding 70k for. I'm not going to say a proven gun, but a proven commodity in Burbo. He's been good when he's got the minutes, and he's proven to be a little bit of a utility in the past, maybe not getting a run. But when you see him and he's in the top 13, he has to be in your Supercoach team.
And I think he's been stuck in the centres, hasn't he, a fair bit here and there as that Mr. Fix-It. When there was an injury, he'd come off the bench and he'd play centre, he'd play back row, so they used him wherever they could. But I think if he can lock down that left edge, he's almost a lock. Probably someone who's not a lock, and there's a lot of questions around Bronson Xerri. 345k, 35% owned. Now, I mean, he impressed in the first trial, didn't he? I think everybody saw him come back and play his first proper game of NRL in, 4 years? And he did pass the eye test. He looked quite good. And there's just been question marks around whether he's going to be in this best 13 or best 17 for the Bulldogs. But, I mean, he's been named again in the centres, Josh. Do you think that this now is telling us, Seraldo's saying, yeah, this guy's in our best 17?
Yeah, it's as someone that works in social media, I don't read too much into it, but he's featured a lot in the Bulldog social media posts, merch advertising, Q&As. He's sort of been front and center, and he has been since sort of the start of January. And I've always wondered if there was that there. I didn't think he would be in the run on 17, not straight away. I thought by round 6 or 7 he would be, but played really well in that trial. But he played on the left, which was surprising. And then, I mean, we don't know when they're going to line up. This podcast will probably go out before the Bulldogs game's played. But yeah, he lined up on the left in the trial. It would be interesting to see Crichton line up on the right. You'd think that they'd want to keep Burton, Crichton, Adokar together. So to see him on the right with most likely Jacob Carraz, yeah, I mean, there was talk about Blake Wilson playing on the wing with Carraz playing at centre, which would have, thrown the Sherry thing in the works. I mean, it's one of those ones where you can't really read into it. Like, it's just a gamble. Similar to, I guess, John Bateman from 2019. He was 400k when he came in. Obviously, we know Sherry's got proven NRL experience, but it's been 4 years since he's played competitive footy. Looked good. I'm not going to say no. Never say never. For me, he's not in my initial plans. If you allowed me to build my dream 24 for Supercoach, Sherry's not in it, but our hand may be forced a little bit with TLT.
There's another guy I'd probably prefer from the same team, potentially, and he'll get a mention very soon. But let's move on to the fourth most owned Mattrix, and it's Taylor May. Now, I'm surprised he's fourth most owned, if I'm completely honest. I thought he would be top 2, to be honest. 33%, 458k. Like, is there a reason maybe that people aren't as high on Taylor May? I mean, for me, he's a lock.
He was the first center I added, or the first center wing in Supercoach that I added. Does it matter that he's at center? I don't think so. You have a differing opinion, and I know I've talked a lot off air with you, Braino. You seem to think that he's going to line up on the left.
Yeah.
I'm the right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that he's going to line up on the right next to To'o. Which I think might be a fantastic thing for To'o, and still really good for Taylor May. Honestly, he's 450. He is a proven gun. Like, we're spending, 277k on a commodity. We're spending 345k in Bronson Xerri in a hope. We're spending 458k on Taylor May on a genuine gun. Is he out of position? Yeah, but he plays for the Panthers. He's going to score well. In some of the iterations of my team, he is the highest,
most expensive,
the highest cost center wing. Yeah, which is scary, really.
Yeah, I can't lie.
He's a 600k guy. Yeah,
I've had him as my most expensive centre wing as well, and for good reason. But in saying that, like the only reason I think he might play left is because they saw Isaac Tungo. He ended up on the right at the back end of last year. Now, obviously, with Stephen Crichton moving on, I mean, who do they rate more out of Tungo and May is maybe the question, because Cleary, we know Cleary floats both sides, Josh. But he's got a tendency to go right more than he does left, and obviously To'o is their main strike weapon. I'd like to say on the wing there on the right side. So I mean, unless we see him swap sides, which I don't think is going to happen, I'd say Taruva stays on the left where he was last year. What are your thoughts on May? Because there's a lot of moving parts, aren't there? There are a lot of question marks on which side he plays.
I really don't care. Like, I'll take him either way. I mean, 2022 had a 49 base power, which is exceptional for a centre wing, which consists of 29 base, 19 evade. Those evade numbers are going to stay the same for me. He is a great tackle breaker. He'll get a lot of hit ups over 8 meters. The attack may not be there because we saw him at his best in 2022 on the left wing. Now he's going to be either moving to left center or right center, but I'm still projecting him somewhere in the 55 to 57 range at the worst. He only went under his average, or he's priced at average 7 times in 2022, which for a center wing is really good. 7 out of 20 games is great considering how high the ceiling is. And even the games that he went under, his lowest score looks to be a 39. So for a center, that's elite. That's excellent to have your lowest score as a 39. I don't really care where he plays. Obviously, I'd like him to be on the right center because the ceiling is that ever bit higher, but yeah, he's been an everstay in the Maxwell Maniacs since the team picker has opened, really. And yeah, not really fussed either way. I'm not panicking come TLT. I just have preferences of him on the right.
Yeah. That's a fair call. Boys, Chevy Stewart has been hunted. Yep, he's gone. So, Josh, Ricky Stewart's come out and basically said that, Jordan Rapiner has won the fullback spot, was the quote. But, I mean, realistically, he's won it for round
Did he win
one.
it, or did Chevy just play his way out of it? Did he win it, or
get involved, did he?
Yeah, that's the problem with him. Like, I think Chevy Stewart will be in our teams at some point this season. Ricky had made it very clear that this is not an axing. It's just a not right now. A little bit like me asking out my high school crush all the time. It's a no right now, Josh. Maybe in the future. Hopefully for us, it's better than my prospects of dating. But no, he'll come eventually. But it won't be round one, which kills us a bit. His ownership was sky high. I imagine it was 3 or 4% higher than what it was when you guys took the notes down. So people are scrambling. James Schiller is looking like the Messiah, held up in lights, and that may be troublesome in about 3 rounds.
How'd that go, Mattrix, a couple of years ago? Was it last year or the year before? Do you want to play it again?
I just wanted
to play it twice.
Yeah. Look, James Schiller still haunts my nightmares, but Chevy Stewart definitely will if he's still in my team. Look, yeah, you just got to pivot and find somebody that's actually playing footy, and a lot of people will. He's still at 32% owned, but yeah, in the next week or so, we're going to see that disintegrate.
Yeah, that's right. Not really worth talking about too much, but he'll be a conversation later down the season.
If you're not running any Tigers, would you be inclined to hold as an enabler and a looper? Knowing that he is basement.
He is basement price, but I just hate going with enough in round one. It's one player you're not making cash from, which is definitely not my preference to start the year. I like to have 25 playing players that are possible to make cash.
I think in 2022 and before, you could have had the question
for the weekly buys.
Yeah, now with the weekly buys, I think you're always going to have that option. And yeah, I just put the question to you. Like, it's not a strategy that I generally like to run, but I just thought, if you know that he's going to come eventually, is it worth holding? But for me, it's not. And yeah.
We're talking Ricky Stewart here. Do we really know that he's coming? We don't. Let's stop pretending that we know what Ricky Stewart's going to do. He doesn't even know. Kale Iro, unfortunately, probably isn't going to find this side. We were so high on him in the team picker kind of era, I'll call it. 219k, 32% owned.
He is going to be the Joseph Suaalii from about 4 years in a row, where he's the first one picked in the end of December for everyone, and then it gets to middle of February, and we're like, oh, this isn't happening.
They're like, Talakai still there, still at left centre. Okay, we'll push again next year. Maybe we'll see how we go. But yeah, no, Kale, get him out of your team. He won't be playing, unfortunately. Jed Cartwright, an interesting one, 26% owned. Maybe the dual position 2RF is helping that ownership. 238k Mattrix. Anything really to talk about here? We haven't seen anything from him in the trials so far. You've got to get him out there.
I mean, he's dual. He's averaged 23 last year in 27 minutes. No, I actually don't understand outside of being dual why he's there.
I mean, the dual's cool, but you don't get points for reserve grade last time I checked, so I'm not too sure. And his ownership's rising. I put a tweet up on the 31st of January just about player ownership, so I didn't really understand at the time. And he was only 22 owned then. He's now risen, and we've seen nothing from him. It's
because it's like the Stephen Bradbury. Everyone else, all these centre wing cheapies are just falling left, right, and centre, and they're like, "Oh, you're Jed Cartwright. I know that name. We'll throw him in there."
He's played before.
The friends that I've talked to that have had Jed Cartwright in their team are like AFL guys, BBL guys looking to get in due to the World Cup and seeing how well owned he is and adding him. Don't fall into that trap. If you listen to this podcast, don't have Jed Cartwright in your team.
I could understand it a month ago when there was intrigue. Kai Pearce-Paul was out for 6 weeks. Dylan Lucas, who's that guy? Oh, maybe Jed Cartwright. He's played for the Rabbitohs, but Kai Pearce-Paul's back. Dylan Lucas looks great. He's just further and further down the pecking order for me.
Yeah, Frizzell's not going anywhere. There's just no path to minutes for him. But all right, strap in, because Roger Tuivasa-Sheck has literally, his stocks have risen through the roof in the last, I would say, week, but maybe more so in the last 24 hours, and even in my head. Josh, you're the one that kind of broke the video about the conversation he had with Monty Beetham and what that was all about, and obviously there's some reason to be excited for RTS, isn't there?
He's making my head rise, and it's not the one that you see on screen right now. I'll tell you that right now for free.
That was before the video came out.
Oh, mate, just watch him at the trial. Literally in this tweet that I just mentioned before, I literally had Roger Tuivasa-Sheck down here, and this was at 15.9%. And I just at the time I was like, I just can't understand why anyone would pick him. Mm-hmm. And then I watched him play against. I wasn't our first grade back outside backs, but you could see the involvement was there. And then the question came up is he roaming? And then, some digging happened. I can't take full credit for it. I do have to find the exact Twitter handle because this gentleman posted a link to an interview with Monty Beetham 4 months ago on Sky Sports New Zealand. And the gentleman's name is escaping me. If I find it, I'll mention it. But yeah, basically was talking with Monty Beetham about how Andrew Webster saw his role. And Andrew Webster basically related him back to Joey Manu and was talking about how, the Twitter account is Limus. He posted, thank you very much for the information. But yeah, RTS basically in this interview said Andrew Webster had clips of Manu and RTS speaking about how they can both scoot from dummy half, take hit-ups when they need to, get on the inside of Teddy, at the time James Tedesco. And that's the role that he sees RTS playing for the Warriors, and then obviously being able to roam as well, which gets our ears pricked because we pay $700K for Joey Manu. And is it fair to say the Warriors are now a better attacking side than the Roosters? I would probably say yes.
Yeah.
So if we're getting Joey Manu for $550K in a better attacking team, and a guy that has not missed a beat, I'm really keen. I wasn't, but yeah, no one's risen higher in my book in the last 5 days than RTS. Mattrix, tell me you're an RTS believer.
I'm a believer. I'm a truther. He's currently not in my team, but
killing us.
But there's a high chance he finds his way in. He is a nice price, but where do I go from there? I've had somebody since day dot that there's some really good logic behind having him, and he's the
Get rid of
only
him.
way to go there. It is an awkward price, 540k, when you want to spend, 350k on 3 or 4 of these guys, 200k on 2 of these guys, and load up in halfback and fullback. That's what I'm struggling with. Like, RTS doesn't scream, don't have Nico Cleary or a couple of elite fullbacks.
Does it scream don't have Hammer?
I was gonna say, like, I think RTS provides more vibes than Hammer.
Vibes. We're here
Did
for
you
the vibes.
Did you see him in the Maori Indigenous game? That was vibes.
Yeah, but have you just seen RTS just in general? Have you seen him repping
Look,
that vintage Warriors merch?
Yes, he's a model. I get it. I get it. He's a model, but we're talking about football. I follow Supercoach stats all the time, and he hasn't played for a couple years.
I have a question. I have a question.
RTS could be great value.
I think Hammer outscores RTS, but by how much in the first 8 weeks? Considering that the Dolphins have that early bye, like, is it enough to offset? And the fact that RTS is going to be 50k cheaper.
I know when you are the Warriors that there's no such thing really as a bad draw, because they are, in my eyes, still a top 4 team, but the Dolphins do have a juicy draw as well. And they can score.
Yeah,
they can let in a lot of tries as well, but they can score, and that's what's going to, like, they've got some new strike weapons too. We'll talk about Herbie a bit later on, but Hammer, if he's humming in that Dolphins team, he's going to score a lot of points.
Yeah,
I'm not sitting here saying Hammer's bad. Like, I think Braino and I are both shitting ourselves not owning him, and I'm doing what I can to get him in. I have a team structure right now where I'm $2,000 short of having May, Hammer, and RTS, and I'm doing what I can to make that work.
Yeah, it's a good pick. I can't argue with Hammer. I've looked at him a million times. I just don't want to copy you, Matty. I want to make it interesting for the season. Usually we have a few players that are different, and we kind of ride them throughout the podcast season, so he'll be one of them.
I can drop Adam Elliott to one of those
Don't do
mid-range 2RFs and get Hammer, RTS, and Talon May.
But it's Adam Elliott.
Why aren't you doing it?
Yeah, because it's Adam Elliott. It's for the vibes.
Your team would score like 1,500 a week in vibes, I reckon.
Mate, 100%. 100%.
All right,
I'm definitely keen.
RTS, absolutely. We should be looking at him for sure. I said in a conversation with you guys in the chat that I was just like, I don't know whether I love RTS as my center wing one. Now I do.
Sent you the link?
Yeah. Then you sent me the link to the video, and I'm like, I would love RTS to be my center wing one.
What do you mean?
But he is not at the moment.
I don't know any of this RTS slander. He was always my center wing one. I was hacked.
Boys, let's move on to the 9th most owned. 19% owned, 314k is Jack Bostock. Now, for good reason. Looks like he's locked down that left wing role. Tessie Newitt left centre. There was word through the preseason that those two were battling it out for the left wing, and it looks like we're probably going to see both of them in round 1. Mattrix, what are your thoughts on Jack Bostock? Is he in your team at the moment, and are you kind of on board with a little bit of the hype?
He's been in and out of my team about 15 times. He's currently not. Has massive trap vibes. So we've been talking about we're talking a lot of vibes today, can I say? But we're talking a lot of
low vibes.
He's got low vibes because he's not playing on the side of the field that I think will score the majority of attacking stats for the Dolphins. But he is 314k and starting on an NRL team.
You know who he reminds me of, Josh? He reminds me of, his name escapes me, left winger for Titans. What's his name? Alofiana Khan-Pereira. He reminds me of Khan-Pereira. So one week he's going to score 20 or 15, and then the next week he'll score you a couple of tries and get you 60.
I was thinking 2022 Xavier Coates.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just moved to the Storm. Everyone was like, man, so good.
Get him in. He's 350k or whatever it was. Yeah, it didn't work.
But yeah,
he's still 350k.
The concerning thing with the stock is he played 60 minutes on the weekend, scored a try, but only pumped out like 46 total, which wasn't great. And then, mate, the Dolphins have centers that just don't pass. I mean, no balls getting the wingers for Tessie New and Herbie. That's my concern. But he's got a great matchup and probably a decent matchup play, especially early on.
Yeah, I think I saw someone talking about the fact that they'll be using the high ball fairly consistently to Bostock's wing, and also for the short dropouts now and that are going to become quite prevalent from this season onwards. We think that Bostock's probably going to be the guy that's going to be under him.
I don't think we mentioned how much points you get off being a kick target in our beginners podcast. How many points did you get for being a target?
At least 3.
Oh,
yeah.
0? Oh, cool. 0.
Good, 3.
I'm joking.
So 3 for the beginners out there. Don't listen.
Yeah. I got to beat someone.
Tessie New. It's more like Tessie Glue. I think you're not going to see him passing the ball, and you're not going to see Herbie Farnworth passing the ball. So we'll have a conversation about Jermaine Asako very soon. We talked about Hammer a little bit.
Avarillo is better than Tessie New. Can I say?
Yeah, I think Bostock is the third best player out of that bunch, but I think the fact that Avarillo isn't the greatest on the wing is what gives Bostock the nod. And then Kristen Wolf had huge raps on Tessie. He said he's been one of the best trainers all preseason. Said he was one of the best on ground last week. I would hope so. He played against children. But still, there's raps coming out for Tessie New. So it looks like he's got the spot 1, and then Avarillo just isn't great on the wing, so probably sees him out, and you're not going to drop Herbie and or Asako.
Yep, good shout. What about Hammer? Now, Mattrix, I want to let you have the floor on Hammer because he's probably been in your team since the team picker. Since I've seen your first draft, yeah. I think he has not moved. 18% owned, 600k on the dot, pretty much. What's the is it the draw? So let me ask you this. Sorry, better question. If the Dolphins didn't have this amazing draw, will you be looking at Hammer, or is it purely because of the draw?
It's not purely because of the draw. One of the first things we did as a podcast network basically was, Braino, you did up the draw. So I had a look at the draw, and it's the Dolphins that have an elite run to start. We're going to have a lot of discussion a bit later on as to why I don't think Jermaine Asako is a big play this year. So you start to look at Hammer. He played 80 minutes a game last year, scored 60, was one of those guys that was very up and down. He's somebody that I faded last year. I think he was 330k at the start of the year, and he's finished at 600k. It was a little bit of a mistake. He's an origin player. I think a lot of attack is going to come Hammer's way. Even look at that All-Star game, and I know it's just a trial game essentially, but he looked confident. He looked fantastic. He's a fullback that's playing in center wing. He has tremendous upside. Does he have a low floor? Yes, he does. But I think with this draw, that rises the floor and rises the ceiling. And I actually thought when I added Hammer and we were having these discussions, these way too early discussions because we do an NRL podcast, I thought that he would be a massive pod. I thought he'd be less than 10% owned, but obviously people have caught on, and I think Hammer's a great pick. I think it's hitting it out of the park.
Do you think it's hitting out of the park, Josh?
Live trade, boys. He's convinced me. He's convinced me. He's made me dump my boy Adam Elliott for Satili Tupanua, which has allowed for
Actually, I'm okay with that. I can live with that.
Which has allowed for Hamiso. No, look, I said before when I was talking about RTS, I was desperately trying to find the funds to get all of them.
I'm listening.
The draw's great. He's great. He's quick. He's elusive. The Dolphins seem like a team where Wayne Bennett said, just goes, fuck it. If we win 40-36, a win's a win. They're happy to concede if they're going to score. They've got great strike. I don't really care if Destiny doesn't pass the ball or if Herbie doesn't pass the ball, as long as it's Hammer feeding them. I don't know who at Supercoach Hammer has naked photos of to blackmail them into giving him center wing duel, but I mean, we're going to take it. It's the most.
Didn't he play three games at center last year at the back end of the year? Isn't that what qualifies you?
I don't know what the rule is.
I'll take it.
I like to think I know a fair bit about this game, but sometimes it's if they played an X position, other times it's what their plans are for the season moving forward. I don't remember seeing Tom Eisenhuth line up in the centers a great deal last year. But I mean, I've never seen Viliami Fafita line up in the front row either. So, you know, we'll get there. But yeah, look, I think Mattrix has hit the nail on the head. The draw is great. It's a premium price. Is he a keeper? Absolutely not. But you know, he's priced at a 60. You're hoping he goes over 60 for the first 8 weeks. I think you can do that. And then you move him on to a fallen gun or, you know, a cheapie that emerges. Mate, imagine if we get Ethan Strange like round 7. Hammer to Ethan Strange, like, yes, please. But yeah, I'm all on board with Hammer. I'm doing what I can to get him in.
Now, I'm going to assume that maybe you're not doing everything to get this next guy in. Xavier Savage, 350k, 16% owned. He's not. We wouldn't really classify him as a guy who is well owned. Normally, anybody above 20% you'd consider as well owned. 16% on the fringe. It looks like he's locked down that wing spot though. So, I mean, how do we feel about Xavier Savage? Because we know in the wing you get you get more kind of run meters and kick returns and things like that, but the base is nearly non-existent. And I mean, even at fullback last year, his base was pretty piss poor. So, Mattrix, what are your thoughts on Xavier Savage? Do you think he's more of a placeholder for most people at the moment, sitting around that 350k?
I think so. Like, Josh has hit the nail on the head that at times, if you need to go down on a player, you start with the higher player. Like, if you're sitting there and you're going, Xavier Savage.
Hold up, pause. If we go down on a player, do we want to reword that?
Yeah. So yeah. Sorry, you want to go down to a player. Like if you're going Xavier Savage to Jack Bostock once TLT comes out, then you're not going to be disappointed. You're going to end up with a bit of money in the bank. Maybe there's a little bit.
By the way,
he did not understand a word that I said, man. I'm glad you did. Yeah, I don't want to fuck with.
No, because you said he was going down on a player. We need to unpack this. Yeah, he's not going down on anybody, mate.
Yo, hold up, pause.
Yeah, that's that gift.
Yeah, sorry.
The maturity of 15-year-olds on this podcast.
Matrix, the most mature person on the pod for the first time ever.
Mate, I don't know if you've heard around here, but I make the jokes. Yeah.
Go on, push on. You need to give us your analysis now. Where the jokesters.
Yeah, look, basically Xavier Savage is a 350k player that is starting in an NRL team. What worries me is Canberra aren't really good at scoring tries. They're not even really good at offense. I'm not even convinced they're that good at footy. But I just think that Xavier Savage isn't somebody that I'm looking at. Unless it's a bottom dollar cheapie, I'm really not looking at Canberra too much, outside of Hudson Young.
So, I mean, when we look at Savage, he's priced at 34. So he's priced at a 34. So do you think that he won't be able to beat 34, or do you think there's not 10 points of value in Savage, Josh?
No. He's in that really awkward. He's in that really awkward price, isn't he? Like it's 35 is kind of gross. Matrix said he is a cheap player starting for an NRL team, and I agree from round 1. How confident are we that he starts round 2? Because you've got Albert Hopewade, you've got Nick Cottridge, you've got Seb Chris, and then Jordan Rapiner. Like Jordan Rapiner has come out and said multiple times, I do not want to play fullback. And either Ricky says, I don't care, you'll do as I say, or he said, this is just give me a 1-week thing. Please cover for me until Seb's back. So I don't see Albert Hopewade getting dropped. I mean, James Schiller is fine, but Seb Chris can move back into centre if this Rapana experiment at fullback stays there. Savage is probably 7 points too expensive for what I want to pay. If he was like 280, yeah, I'd roll the dice, but not at 350.
Yeah. Boys, 12th most owned. Very interesting. Saw a Farlogo from the Melbourne Storm, 15% owned. Now,
I wondered why he was in bold. He's the only player here that we've got in bold, and I wanted to wonder why.
Do you want to know why he's in bold? Because he's the only player that we will not be talking about for the rest of the podcast.
Sweet. I'm happy with that.
Because there is no point. Unfortunately, from what it looks like, we're not going to see much of him to start the season. And don't get me wrong, when he comes into contention, if there's an injury or Remus Smith inevitably shits the bed, like we know that he will. For some reason, the guy keeps getting picked because Bellamy loves him, but there's got to come a time where you start to blood these younger guys, and Remus Smith seems to be the first one in the back line going. Then, I mean, maybe he gets a crack, but I don't know. I love him as a player.
I'm pretty happy if we re-sign David Nofaluma in like a sign and trade, and we just send him to Melbourne, and they give us Still a fat logo. And then we can just ship off Charlie Sains to the Blacktown workers for all I care. Like,
Yep.
he needs to play
for it.
He needs to play footy. Like, he needs. We've seen
He's good.
he was exceptional. Him and Jonah Pezzett and like another one of these like young guys that they're probably not going to get a crack anytime soon. I mean, Fa'alogo is probably more likely than Pezzett, but yeah, there comes a time when you're like, Remus Smith he's fine, but do Melbourne want to be fine, or do they want to try and blood this guy? So
yep, you got to get him on the field. Simple as that.
We go from one exciting,
but not for Supercoach.
No, not for Supercoach. We go from one exciting freak, like probably one of the most energetic players of all time, to Drew Hutchison.
Oh, Jesus. All right, that'll do for today. See you next time.
What a staple of everyone's teams.
He's been in my team.
Yeah, he's been in mine too, but I don't like it.
Nah, neither. There's another guy. Don't
Centre-wing playing half.
Started on I've got him.
I mean, he is good. Like, he's a good footy player, good organizer. I think Burton's going to take all the touches. Crichton might roam. Blake Taff will be in there. You don't get points for looking cool. Unfortunately, that's why Cooper Cronk was never a great Supercoach option. And that's the very first podcast you'll ever hear someone compare Cooper Cronk to Drew Hutchison.
Yeah, good shout. I don't think we need to talk too much about him. I think maybe people are picking him because he's named at halfback. But how much is he going to do in that jersey is the question. I guess that we don't have the answer to, but I don't think it's going to be too much. Jesse Arthur's Mattrix is your Broncos boy, 376k. He's the 14th most owned, 13%. He's been in and out of my team about 15 times as well, same as Jack Bostock for you. Is he still there for you? Do we see maybe people got turned off what they saw at him at fullback in the Indigenous Maori game?
You know what? He's not still in my team. He played plenty of games last year and averaged this. I can't really see that much changing for him. Like, I just think this might be what he is, like a serviceable winger, and that's all it is. Yeah, he's 376k in a Broncos team, but what's changed? Like, Corey Oates was injured for the whole of last year, so he got his chance. Like, what's changed to make him... Since 2020, he's averaged 34, 38, 37, and 37. Like, if he averages 45, fine. But if I'm spending 376k in centre wing, I want more than that.
I mean, coming from a Broncos truther, so if that's not a message, then I don't know what is. But I'm getting the same vibes. I'm pretty happy to move on from him. But these last two guys, boys, are what we would call premium. So it might be worth holding both of them because there's a conversation to be had very soon about both of these guys that, I mean, people are spending up for both of them. So we'll definitely have a chat about them very soon. But we should chat about Insight Unlimited, lads, because there's a bit going on in the Insight world in the background. And for anybody who doesn't know, Insight Unlimited has just dropped about maybe 3 to 4 weeks ago, which is really exciting. We've been putting a lot of time in the background to making this work and bringing you something that's pretty cool, and it's going to hopefully up your Supercoach game. So for less than 50 cents a week, Insight Unlimited is going to give you everything that we have to offer. It's going to give you our final teams, our weekly trades, our captains, exclusive Q&As in our Discord. You can ask us anything that you want every single week. Hot off the press team news as it comes through as well. We've got channels dedicated to injury news as well, all in one place and much more. And not to mention, it isn't just NRL, boys. It's we've got a team of Supercoach experts in every single sport, from AFL and NRL to BBL and NBL at the end of the year. Get inside our minds with Insight Unlimited for just $25 for the full year. So if you're serious about taking out the Insight Supercoach World Cup, which we're going to talk about very soon, it's very worthwhile investment. Or maybe you just purely want to support the show and you like what we do, and we would appreciate that. So, we can bring you better content and take the show to new heights. Your hard-earned money goes a long way, and we really do appreciate it. So you can become an Insight Unlimited member today by joining the Discord link. It is in the description below. And then there'll be a channel that says Insight Unlimited, and all your info is right there. Let's talk premiums, boys. The first guy on the list is Greg Marzhew, and for good reason. This guy was a must-own last year. and I can tell you what, I can't argue with anybody at all that shows me their team, and Greg Marzhew with their CTW one, Josh. He's a gun.
I hate Greg Marzhew. I had a raging stonk on for him all of preseason last year, and then the prick decided to miss a bus, and then Adam O'Brien dropped him for a week, and that made me not start with him, and then I never got him back in. He was unreal last year. He was everything that we had hoped. For anyone that hasn't played Supercoach, myself and many others had hyped Marzhew up for years. Years and years and years. And he never cracked it in first grade. He is not good defensively. We saw that last year. So that was always his sticking point. But got the role last year and was exceptional. One of the best bases. The Knights had a resurgence in attack, and he was just in everything. Unreal. I think he is priced at value. But I mean, we've spoken about with these keepers that we're happy to take a small loss on them because we're going to have them all year. Same as Braino. If you have Marzhew, I can't really tell you no. As it stands right now, boys, is Marzhew in the community team?
He's not in ours.
Or
No.
he would have just missed the cut, surely.
He had some votes, that's for sure.
A lot of switched on managers. I really like Marzhew. And I like Marzhew. I think Marzhew's a must-have if you decide to go like Pappy over Ponga. I think you need someone in that Knights attack, and if you can't get Ponga, then I think Marzhew becomes a must.
Fair shout. What are your thoughts, Mattrix?
Look, let me tell you a little thing about stacks. Look, if Ponga scores well, Marzhew is going to score well. Ponga's been great. In draft, I just took Marzhew with my second draft pick. That's how high I am on him. But it's just a lot of money to go and start the year with. I think I will own Marzhew at times throughout the year because tell me Marzhew doesn't have the most Supercoach friendly game out of anyone. Apart from maybe not goal kicking.
Yeah.
I mean, like when you look at his base, he had the fifth highest base power last year, which was 49. So I think we'll talk about the leader very soon, which is an interesting conversation to have. But yeah, his base 32, which is pretty solid. But the amount of opportunity he gets on that left wing with Kalen Ponga's preference to sweep left instead of go right, I think you mentioned the stack. The stack is ideal. The Marzhew Ponga stack is probably one of the best stacks in the game. Maybe the Dylan Brown, Sean Lane stack could rival it. But I tell you what, if you want a nice little fullback wing combo, I reckon they take the cake as the best stack in the game.
If you'd have to nearly not have Nico or Cleary to be able to afford it, that's my probably biggest gripe with it.
I've had teams where I've played around with my team and I'm like, how do I get Marzhew in? And it looked like Sam Hughes as my front row forward 2. I had to take a bit of a hit at 2RF. I also had to go ultra cheap in the center wing to try and fit him in. And for me, the way I like my team structure, it just didn't work. But we've said it a number of times. If you can fit him in and you like it, he's almost a must-have. And you will own him at some point of the year. He will be the goal. He will be the guy that you want to upgrade and get to in the center wing, and you just chuck him there and leave him there for the season. So I can't argue with anybody getting him. The thing with
Mars is as well, like he may not score, but he'll still put up 50, which is absolutely fine. Like if you see the Knights get battered 30-6, Marzhew will still end up on 45, 50 points, which is, what you want from a bad week from your center wings. His coefficient of variance was no, that was not him. That was still Talon May. His coefficient of variance was still very, very low for a center wing. One of the best. So he's not someone that's going to fluctuate too much, and it's going to be rage trading. He's also a guy with his base. If he gets 2 tries, it's 150 points. So it's not like an Alex Johnston where he needs 2 tries to get to 80. 2 tries for Marzhew will get you 150.
Yeah, Marzhew's was 36%, which is great.
That's mental. Like that's the same as Talon May, who we were talking about earlier, as one of the most consistent center wings in the game. So, elite areas from him.
Yeah, absolutely. Get him in your team if you can make it work. This next guy we are fading at all costs in Jermaine Asako. 10% owned, 783,000, coming off a career year last year. When you look at his stats, he scored 1,841 total points last year, which I think put him in the top 3 from memory. which is insane considering the season he had was 1,015 points, which is 830 points difference in terms of a career year. 77 average. Obviously played his 80 minutes. His base was 28. He had 27 points scored per game. So that's probably a try and 2 goals per game as a bare minimum. And obviously as a goal kicker, it's really attractive to have a guy on your team where your team's going to score points. Josh mentioned the Dolphins are just swinging from the fences in terms of just all attack and no defense. Bit of the Atlanta Hawks of the NRL, you could probably say. But there is a big change this year, Mattrix, in the person that's inside him this year doesn't have a preference to pass the football. So does that hurt him having Farnworth inside him this year?
Yeah, look, I've watched a lot of Herbie on the field, off the field. He's a beautiful man. But yeah, look, I don't think that he's going to be assisting for too many. Like, he is a devastating runner of the ball, and I think Jermaine misses out this year a little bit. I think he's still going to goal kick. Like, the Dolphins aren't the Raiders. They are going to score a lot of points, and Jermaine's going to convert them. But Herbie inside him is enough for me to stay away, even if it's not as big of a drop as we might think. I think there's 100% going to be at least a 17-point drop this year.
So, Josh, like you got 10% owned for Osako, you got 6% owned for Marzhew. Marzhew should be 16% owned, realistically, when you look at those numbers.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he averages 55. And that's nothing to do with him. That's just to do with who's inside him. And I think the Dolphins will be better, which is a weird thing to say for such a significant drop-off. Yeah, we saw Osako go through stretches last year of like his worst, and I think his worst will be more prevalent this year than what it was last year. His goal kicking will still keep him respectable. It's not like we're saying he's going to average 35. The goal kicking will still keep him up there, and the Dolphins being an attacking-minded side will keep him in the fray. He is a great guy to trade for in draft after about 7 weeks when someone just gives up on him. But in Classic, I'm not touching him. You couldn't give me 760k to touch him. I've got no interest at all. I was so high. Like we sat here the end of December, early January. You had him in your team, and I was like, not for me, but I can really understand it. Hell, I'm sitting here with Make Acevo in my team, so I'm all about that risky business at the center wing. But Sarko, like, I wouldn't be surprised to see him 500k after round 10.
Tell him he's dreaming.
Yeah, agreed.
Mate, all that Insight Unlimited money you've pocketed, it's just going towards all these soundboards you've got lined up.
Hey, someone's got to do it, boys. Someone's got to do it. It's it's going to be me. You're going to get plenty of those this year, boys. I tell you what, you're not going to get plenty of in my team. Dane Gagai, 739k Mattrix. You've got a very specific opinion on Dane Gagai. Do you want to share that?
I said lose my number in the notes, and I said what I said.
Yeah, good. That's the deepest analysis we're going to get, I think. You know what? Here's a fun fact. Is this going to change your mind? Dane Gagai had the highest average base power score average last year by any centre wing player by 7 total points. 58 average. He had an average of 72 over the season last year, but 58 in base power is insane. So the next highest was Dylan Lucas at 51. And he obviously only played, I think, 7 games. Then you've got Jack Bird.
Also not a centre wing as well.
Not a centre wing. And then you've also got Jack Bird at 50 base power. And he kind of shifted between fuck knows where. Edge and God knows where, like centre wing.
Hospital.
Yeah.
He's in a league stand.
I didn't want to say it, but someone had to. And then you've got Joey Manu and Greg Marzhew at 49 each, Herbie at 48. So like... and Karaz at 48. So there's your relevance there in comparison. You've got Brian To'o, who averages 47 base power per game last year. And then you've got Dane Gagai at 58, 11 total points above someone like To'o, who's very renowned for his base. So I thought that was a very interesting stat. Does that make you any more interested in Dane Gagai? It's just the price, I guess. If we could get him at sub 600, everyone would be locking him into their team. But just with Ponga's tendency to go left, how much ball is he going to get? How much opportunity?
Sorry, that's me putting my headphone back in because you're still talking about Gagai.
Fair shout.
It's like you look at the centre wing averages last year, and like I thought Brian Kelly had one of the most underrated seasons last year, averaging 64. And then you look at Dane Gagai averaging like over 70. Like, what the fuck did I miss? Like, was I just not watching footy last year? Like, I feel like he was a guy where people said to me, "Oh, what do you think of Dane Gagai?" And you always just instinctively go, "Why?" And then you realize he averaged 72, and you're like, "Holy shit!" I'm not going to tell you to check yourself into a facility for looking at Dane Gagai as I would with Asako. He has more merit, but the merit is about as good as Nathan was in State of Origin, which was not very good. So
Good. Let's move on then from Dane Gagai, shall we? To Valentine Holmes, the heartthrob for Mattrix in 2023. I reckon every single episode that we did last year, Mattrix managed to mention Val Holmes in an episode somehow. Even when he wasn't playing, Val Holmes got a mention.
now he's a real center wing that we can sink our teeth into. None of this faux Gagai, faux Asako rubbish. This is a real center wing we can hook into.
So you're saving 50K between Asako and Holmes. We're picking Val Holmes over Asako?
You're saving 50K. You're saving the humiliation of being ranked 15K. You're saving the stress of watching Asako score 27 points. Yeah, I'm keen on Val, especially with the Cowboys bounce back. Big preseason 2023 vibes here. And it could go devastatingly bad. But also, in saying that, I remember it was after like 5 weeks, everyone was like, "Oh my god, Val's been awful." No, yeah, he's been terrible. Like we all piped him up. I think he still averaged like 65 in the first like 5 weeks. Like, he was still unreal. Like,
yeah, his first 5 rounds of scores last year were 63, 47, 67, 69, 60.
And you read social media, and they made it out like he was. I'm trying to think of someone really. He was Charlie Staines.
Yeah, for you NBA heads out there.
Jordan Poole's a great example. But yeah, like people were making out like he was Charlie Staines last year after the first month and a bit. Like he was still really good in a crap team. And then the Cowboys got good, and then he finished with a 70+ average. And I think the Cowboys will be good from day one. I'm keen on Val. Are we? If we're paying for Val, are we finding the extra 50K for Marzhew?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to.
Like,
I think that's the problem.
Marzhew is that much better?
I think he is.
Okay.
Yeah. We see. Oh, actually, you know what? This all hinges on Ponga's health too. Because I tell you what, if Ponga goes down early,
it's disaster for Marzhew.
Yeah, it's Marzhew straight out. So yeah, but look, Ponga's healthy at the moment. Hopefully, he stays healthy. Marzhew's a must-have.
That's the thing with Val. Like we saw him be great without Drinkwater. We saw him be great with Drinkwater. Like he's sweet. Like he's going to be good all year round.
Yeah.
I don't see the difference between last year and this year, except everybody had him last year and nobody's got him this year. I say nobody. I don't even know what it is. 9% of people have him this year. It's a great pod if you're spending up. Like, so's Marzhew, because only 6% of people, can I say can afford him? Because I feel like most people want Marzhew. But, like, Val's a great pod. And he's got good base. Like, he's just elite.
Also has a great draw. Dolphins, Knights, Dragons, Broncos away, which isn't great. Titans, Parramatta, Sharks. Like that's a pretty ripper draw if you're the Cowboys.
And then even into Origin, you got Dolphins, Gold Coast, and the Tigers. So
and he will always back up. Like he's a renowned backer up. Great English there by me. Backer upper. And yeah, he only missed. So his major buys are 16, 19. And he was out of those anyway. Yeah, he was already missing those. So we're sweet. So he only misses the.
Did you know he was the Jets running back?
Really? Oh my god! I was tanking for Bijan Robinson, and he was my starting running back for about 3 weeks. I needed just to absolutely tank. So Val was in my team for tanking for Bijan. But yeah, he misses. This is what he misses: the Roosters away at Allianz, nothing and nothing. They're the only games he misses this year, which is one of the best Origin draws to have.
You're kind of making me now rethink my would you just get Marzhew?
I don't think it's... See, I think Marzhew's ahead, but I don't think it's by as much as what you boys think. Like, I think Val... I'm really keen on Val.
Maybe the question becomes, is he 5 points better? Because technically he's priced 5 points better Marzhew over Holmes.
Yeah.
Holmes isn't relying on Ponga. Like, Ponga goes down, Marzhew goes down. You're also, if Marzhew goes down, Marzhew goes down. If anybody goes down on the, except for Val, if anyone goes down on the Cowboys, Val is fucking sweet. He
Hey,
probably gets more
except
balls if
Dearden.
someone goes down.
Pause. Stop saying people going down, man. We need to reword your vocabulary. But that's what I was saying before. Like, if Drinkwater goes down and Chester plays fullback, that's cool. Like, nothing changes. If Chad Townsend goes down, North Queensland cheer for joy. It's fine. Like, nothing changes. Val's gonna eat. And he's gonna get his every week. I'm not gonna start with him, but I'm very, very keen on Val.
What if Dearden goes down? Because I reckon he is the most influential in terms of Val.
I still think Chad can give serviceable ball to Drinkwater. Like, Chad's no mug. Like, he can still just shovel the ball to Drinkwater and say, "Hey, look, if Dearden and Drinkwater go down, the Cowboys are in a world of hurt, and Val's probably not great, but fuck you walk under a lot of ladders and seeing a lot of black cats.
There's a lot going on there. Yeah. Let's move on to these last two boys before we move on to the Chiefs. Sorry, Matthew, did you have one more thing to say?
No, I was just waiting. I was just going to get when you bring up the next
I
guy.
just wanted to really. I don't think the gap between Marzhew and Val is as big as what you think it is.
Yeah, fair enough. I think maybe I'm just so high on Marzhew, and maybe more so the stack with Ponga. Maybe that's
yeah. If you can afford both, that's different. That's obviously we're getting into more strategy there because you're getting the stack. But like, if you can only afford one, I still think it's Marzhew. But like basically the question is like, is it Marzhew and Pappenhausen versus like Ponga and RTS or something like that?
Yeah. What can you do with the 50K? And I tell you what, you can do a lot with what's going on at the moment.
You can't buy Ruben Garrick though.
You cannot. Not a chance.
No.
10% owned.
This is gross.
10% owned. 722K.
Thinking we're playing left wing again, surely.
Look, yeah, it's the goal kicking winger, isn't it? The attraction. And maybe people are looking at his stats last year and they're looking at him at fullback, not really realizing Turbo was out. If we look at Garrick from last year and the scores that he got in the centres, I think the majority of them were under 50. I don't
know, man. There's someone certain on this podcast that vice captained him for one of those games. And it was the good one.
Yeah, well played, sir.
I don't know why.
35. So he scored 35 at centre, and then he got the 169, I'm assuming you're talking about there. Then he followed it up with a beautiful 26, and then a 62. So very up and down. But more often than not, we're talking down at centre. The attraction's just not there. I guess when maybe for everybody kind of trying to understand where we're going with this, Josh, like what's the difference between centre and wing in terms of output for Supercoach?
Not even centre and wing. Like, go back and look at the last 4 or 5 years of the top scoring centre wingers. They're either the left centres or the left wingers. Most likely the left wingers. I'm probably going to be able to do that really quickly. So if we just look at the top centre wing averages from last year, we have Jordan Pierre, not enough game size, Sua Fagalonga, not enough game size, Greg Marzhew, Tom Jenkins on the left, Val Holmes on the left, Ruben Garrick on the left, Brian Toto on the right, Dallin will tell you, Lesak on the right. There's more trending towards left wingers than there is any position. And all the talk for Manly this preseason is it's going to line up with Jackson Paulo, Telltale Kola, and obviously Ben Travojevic on the left-hand side, with Hamba Ola Kawatsu, Ruben Garrick, and Jason Saab on the right-hand side. We know Turbo loves to hit left. He's probably better than Ponga at it on his best, and that's saying something considering how good KP is. There's just going to be less ball for Garrick. He fed off Turbo being in the side, being on the wing, but then obviously being him at fullback. The question for Garrick arises when Turbo inevitably does go down. But does he even play fullback? Like, they played weeks a fair bit like there last year. I mean, Kola can play at fullback. There's no guarantee that Garrick lines up there. So for me, shout out to Phil, but I'm not keen on Garrick one bit, not even in draft, because he's going to be way overdrafted. There's no value in any format.
Yeah, unless you expect Turbo to go down or you expect something to happen there where there's a move. But even then, I think he's locked into centre. He's said that he wants to play centre. So Brian Toto, Mattrix, 720K, not very well owned. I don't have the number here, but it can't be more than 5%. But a little bit of love from you. I know that you're a big Brian Toto fan, as are we, for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But you've got to, I mean, with the price around that point where you're looking at guys like Holmes for an extra 16K, I mean, what's the appeal with Toto?
He's on an elite Panthers attack. I hope Taylor May plays inside him because he's had glue hands Crichton in beside him and he still scored really well. I am so high on Toto that my autocorrect, when I type in 2 to anybody, autocorrects to Toto.
I am the same.
Like it is like that's how much Siri knows how much I love Toto. 720k is really hard for me to spend on anyone, but I think there's a real argument for Toto over some of these other guys, especially like if you've got Garrick in your team, like either delete the app or just move across to Toto or Val Holmes. Like Toto's going to be a beast. I think he could be better. He could push 800k at certain times throughout this year if Talon May is the guy that's inside him. If like Braino thinks Tungo's inside him, he's in exactly the same position. And then he's still worth 720k. How good? The Panthers haven't got worse.
Are we living in 2021? Because
that was my thinking. It's like we're still living on the greatness of PVL ball. He was not good to start the year. 43, 67, 57, 65, 112, 67, 29, 46, 89, 54, 58. That sounds great. For Brian Toto, that's terrible. Finished the year like amazing. 104, 84, 108, 77, 100. Like he finished the year exceptional. And is this the Talon May syndrome? Is this the Terrell May syndrome where we're jumping on the back of a great end of season? I think him losing Crichton is huge. I can't sit here and poo-poo on Brian Toto because he was in the very, very first iteration of my team when the app first opened. Because I was like, oh, no, Crichton, Toto's going to be great. And then I pivoted to Talon May when the reports that he was moving to the right. It's tough because we're going to see him now with no Crichton. I'm going to let it go through to the keeper for the first 6 weeks and then let's reassess. I'm not ruling him out because if he looks great and Talon May is looking great, I'm not against having the triple stack of Cleary, May, and Toto because we saw how good May and Tungo lined up together. Like they combined very well. And if Toto and May can line up the same, then amazing. Even May and Tungo, even Toto and Tungo, like I'm happy with either of those. But I think if I had the money to spend, I would find it for Val because I know what I'm going to get from Val. And I just want to see what I'm going to get from whoever pairs Toto, whether it be Tungo or May.
Yep. Quickly did the math while you were talking there. It was 62 average for the first 12 rounds and then finished with an 86.5 in those last 6 games. So that 86.5, that's 24 points above his average for the season, essentially, which is going to bump his price up monumentally. So when we're paying 720k on a 71 average from last year.
The old Tom Flegler syndrome.
Hey, that couple of 70s, 79, 76 or whatever that Flegler got bumped his price up 4 points. We're looking at the same, probably even more from Toto with his finish to the year. So, yeah, maybe we are paying a little bit too much to get to him. Especially with 2021, 1,512 points. Last year, 1,412, so 100 less. 13 average less. And it all depends who's inside him, I think, for me. But yeah, I think there's probably better options around that price point.
Their draw also is not amazing. Melbourne away, Parramatta at home, Broncos at home, Roosters at home, Manly at home, and then the bye. I think you can really target after that. I mean, you got the Tigers, Cowboys, Souths, Bulldogs, Warriors, Sharks, Dragons, Manly, Newcastle before the bye. He doesn't have the greatest bye structure. He will miss... Oh, actually, no. He's got a very similar to Val Holmes. He does miss the Dragons at home in round 13, which is going to suck because that's a matchup you want. But his buys are in round 16 and round 19 as well. So he only misses those two. I mean, if Penrith are walking the league, again, he might get rested in 17 and 20. But if it's still tight, touch and go. Ivan Cleary has shown that he doesn't care too much about the minor premiership. I think he did, like when they won it 3 years ago. But the last 2 years, he's just said, I don't really care. So he's a bit of a prone to arresting. But from round 7 to round 12, like they're really great matchups apart from the Warriors in New Zealand. Apart from that, I'd be very happy to own Toto.
Yep. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, we're talking premium, we're talking 700k plus. And I know I did a poll on X maybe 3 weeks ago. and said who was your most expensive centre wing. We had, I think it was 29% that had 600k plus, and then 500 to 600k was like 24%. Most of the ranges were between 20 to 29%. So it's very spread, and that's obviously X. It's a very small sample size, but we don't see, I guess, many people paying up above that 700k mark. It's going to be very
I
interesting.
really
to see
wish
what
you
teams
could
look
run polls on Facebook, because I'd love to see the difference between like a Supercoach Central and X. Like X is a more hardcore niche. Like, I think that's fair to say. So I'd love to look at the differences in strategy between sort of those two platforms. And we are sometimes in a bubble over on X. There was players
Absolutely.
like Cleary and Hines. Like, you look at everyone's team, it's near on 80%, whereas their ownership doesn't reflect that. It's 36 and 40. And with this Hines news today, it may be even lower. So it's funny how different people play the game and how different social media platforms can influence that. But yeah, Braino, I think, is a prime candidate for, if we're going to buy him, let's buy him after the buy.
Yep, good advice. Boys, before we move on to the cheapies, shout out to the Standard Squeeze. Guys, if you're sick of breaking glass bottles, maybe accidentally sinking triple shots because you can't measure a pour properly, your beer's going warm, maybe your coffees are getting cold in the morning, the Standard Squeeze have everything that you need to drink responsibly, but also conveniently with their food-grade quality plastic and fantastic 4-in-1s. You can go to their website, thestandardsqueeze.com, and you can use the code INSIGHT15 to get yourself 15% off everything in store. Now, we're talking cheapies less than 350k, boys, and there's 1, 2, 3, 7, 10 guys here. I mean, look, some of them are a bit of a stretch. We can write Chevy Stewart off right now. He's gone. He's done. So you got to get him out of your team. He is over 30% owned. So PSA, move him on. Ben Turbo, we've spoken about him. Is there anything we want to add on Ben Travojevic, or are we happy to move on?
More so just, are you going to own Jake as well? That's the only major question.
Because we assume you've got Tom, right?
Oh, you have, yeah. I mean, I guess in drafts, like, do you draft Jake just for the? For the
I
buffs?
did.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've
Get all
seen
three.
him in your photo.
Yeah.
That.
So Turbo's fine. Let's put a line through Chevy Stewart. Let's put a line through Cale Ero. Put a line through Jed Cartwright. We've spoken about Bostock. Spoken about Savage. That leaves us with a good 3 or 4 players to talk about.
And you know the best part? I'm happy to talk about Jamin Salmon for the next 10 minutes because there is a very big intrigue
the
there.
Fish.
The fish, the sow, the weak-gutted dog, all of the above. Yeah, let's talk Salmon, because he does have the 2RF centre wing duel, the highly coveted duel. Good friend of the show at SC Guns has stretched very far and said it gives off 2020 Isaiah Yo vibes, which is I love an overreaction, but I'm fucking hell. 9.9% owned at the moment. Played amazing in trial week 1. And I was sitting. So did Sean Kepi. I was sitting on a train in the middle of Sydney, and my heart broke when I saw the team list news. I saw our boy Josh Curran demoted to the bench. Do you think whoever's named 13 plays 50 minutes, and is Salmon good enough to score? What are we going to take? I'm assuming he's a centre wing 4 for a lot of us, or centre wing 3 if you're going to have Burbo as a 4.
It is a 4 for
if
me.
he scores us 45 points, are you happy?
Yes.
That's a 1 ppm, and I think that's a big ask.
Yeah, I think that's a big
I'd be
ask.
stoked.
I don't know if he can.
It just depends on the minute.
He strikes me as a Victor Radley available in centre wing. Just a great shoveler.
Yeah, but he wants to do more, doesn't he? We just saw whenever he was on the left edge for Penrith, like he just took the game over. Anytime he had the ball in his hand, he just wanted to do everything. I don't know whether that goes away. Like maybe it becomes even more relevant now this year. Maybe he might try to do more and become more involved in the game. I don't know whether he's got it in him to just be that base stat guy that just comes in and does his job.
I think he's cheap enough that I'm happy to look past it. Like, I'm not going to sit there and turn my nose up and go, oh, I can't take him. He's priced at a 31. If he starts at 13, like, fuck you at centre wing. Like, I'm sitting here looking at Morgan Smithies, who's 350. I've never seen the guy play footy apart from highlight reels. And I've sort of seen how good Salmon can be. Like, I'm not sitting here being like, oh, don't pick him. I'm just curious to what upside there is there, because obviously, yes, 2020 Isaiah Yo is a wild stretch. But what are we realistically projecting for him?
I think you're right. But my question mark at the moment yes, he's 310k or whatever it is. That's nice. That's cheap. But like with Curran off the bench, let's just say, for instance, Curran's off the bench, right? We know Curran can play edge and middle. They've got Max King, they've got Farmasuli, they've got a number of middles. They've got Sam Hughes. Are they just going to use this guy as that kind of take the sting out of the game first 20 minutes and then Curran comes on and plays 60? Like, how do they use him after this? Like, what's the rotation going to look like?
Me as that. Like, Curran strikes me as that. To me,
Yeah.
Salmon is the kind of guy that's like, he is Kurt Mann
He's
for
the
the
impact guy.
2 years ago. Do fuck all for 60 minutes, but just be there for us.
Yep.
And
that
like
kind of makes him Supercoach relevant, doesn't it?
It's just a process of math. Like, if you get 60 minutes, surely you do something.
Yeah, surely you can score 45 in 60 minutes.
I don't know. We saw Franklin Pele priced at 220k and he somehow lost money. So
He didn't play 60 minutes, that's for sure. About 17.
I'm starting with him if he's named at 13.
Me too.
Obviously. But yeah, I'm not too sure. I'm not expecting a 60 from him.
And it's just the appeal, isn't it, of having a guy that's starting lock, could potentially play 50 plus minutes in your center wing. I think that's the attraction, isn't it? Like, obviously, we're not looking at him if he's a 2RF only. It's purely the center wing duel.
Yeah.
You know what? Maybe I am after having Josh Curran and an injured Brendan Piakura in my team for most of the preseason. Like, maybe I nearly am looking at him even at second row forward, because I don't know how many of these 400 guys you can have, but like if you're looking to spend up in center wing as well, it becomes pretty hard unless you have Sean Kepi as your front row forward one.
Well, that's the question, isn't it? Like, you're looking at like, oh, do I go with a bunch of 450k 2RF guys and a bunch of bums at center wing, or do I go with RTS, Hammer, and the lads, and Alex Seyfarth and the crew running as my 2RF? And I'd prefer the latter.
Yeah.
Like, if Alex Seyfarth can get me a safe 50, he's boring as fuck. He is 2021 Luke Garner for the Tigers. He gets me 50. I am happy. And RTS is the vibes, and the Hammer is the Fin Man. That's what I want. Yeah, that's what I want. I'm here for the vibes. And I think I'd rather that make up than sit there and pull my hair out watching Jack Bostock get a 17 and Satili Tupanua get a 54.
Fair enough. I mean,
sorry for a lot of people catching strays there. I feel like I threw a lot of plays under the bus.
Yeah, just a tad.
But
that's okay.
You just named everybody's team, and you're like, you know what's better than that? Anything you've done.
Oh, but that's the thing. My team is also what I've just ragged on. I've also had Jack Bostock. I've also had Satili Tupanua. My team is also shit.
Yep. Mine
I'll tell
too.
you-
Speaking of these last two guys,
I was gonna say, we talk about boring 2021 Luke Garner. I reckon Kane Bradley could tattoo that in his fucking forehead, because
how many times have I messaged you sending the gif of Conor McGregor sitting there at the fucking press conference going, who the fuck is that guy? Yeah, that's Kane Bradley. Like 238k, 2.5% owned. I mean, look, ownership isn't important here.
From the clouds.
2RF.
Fucking nowhere.
Playing left edge. Like, I mean, look, this is trial 2. We don't know whether this is going to happen. We could be having a very different conversation, TLT. I have a feeling we may be.
Yeah.
Is Bloor injured?
I think he's coming back from something.
Yeah, he's in the
He's getting over the PTSD. He's getting over the PTSD of training with the Tigers every day for fucking 4 years.
Whenever he closes his eyes, he's got this big L in front of his eyes, and he just can't get rid of it. So that'll take some time.
He just sees Lee Hallett just in his fucking peripheral vision 24.
Poor. Yeah, that's a different conversation altogether.
Justin Pascoe just yelling from the sideline at Sean Bloor.
Yeah. No, I love Justin Pascoe getting on the field and throwing a few balls in warm up as well. That's my favourite photo of all time. Anyway, I don't know whether we have much to talk about Kane Bradley in terms of if he gets named and he's the starting left edge for the Melbourne Storm.
100%.
You have to pick him at centre wing, like at 238k. You just have to pick him and just hope for the best, unless Sean Bloor's like named on the bench or something.
Oh, I still think you take him.
Yeah, even if Sean Bloor's named on the bench.
And then he plays the first 15 minutes and Bloor plays the rest.
Oh, just
Don't care.
Delete that. My girlfriend will have a nice team around too if that happens.
And I guess the last one to talk about before we talk about those kind of mid-range guys is Ali Leotawa. Now, at 238k, 3.5% owned, he was great in the first trial. Unfortunately, we see him in the reserves in the second trial, so there's a good chance he probably falls out of this best 17 for the Warriors. But in saying that, Chance Nickel-Klokstad is at risk of missing game one, so there could be a little bit of movement in this back line. So I would probably urge people to maybe steer clear of Leotawa because it could be a little bit of a trap. There's every chance potentially he gets named in centre in round one, and then CNK comes back, and we see a big shift in the back line, and then he's gone into the abyss.
And remember when players are missing round one, it's a long fucking time between now and round one. They get another week. So it's really like a 3-week recovery rather than just a 1 week. So CNK being in doubt bodes well that I think he plays. I think he's tracking well for round two. But yeah, I mean, Ali Leotawa looked really good in the trial. I thought he offered more than Rocco Berry, but time will tell. For Supercoach sakes, let's hope Rocco Berry shits the bed in trial week 2, because I kind of need this guy to get named.
Yeah, it's starting to get very slim with cheapies. We just talked. Okay, so let me run you through the cheapies we've talked about. Burbo, fine.
Yep.
Zeri, question marks. Chevy Stewart, gone. Eero, not playing. Cartwright, no way. Bostock, question marks. Savage, Salmon, I mean, the best of a bad bunch. Bradley, who the fuck is that guy? Leotawa, we're probably not going to get named. Are there any other viable cheapie options? I mean, we talked about Ethan Strange in the last pod. We won't talk about him again. But, is there anybody else? Because at the moment, it just screams you need to pay up at centre wing now.
Yeah, and that's why I'm getting a semi-stiffy for Alex Seyfarth and Morgan Smithies and the boys in the 300Ks, because it's like centre wing's not giving us a whole lot, and we need some. I mean, I'm looking at my centre wing right now after my live trade, and I've got two of us to check: May, Salmon, Amiso, Burbo, Bradley, and Chevy Stewart, who was Ali Leotawa. So I'm needing a lot to roll my way.
My centre wing is cooked. I'm in all sorts of dramas. I've got ex-player we haven't spoken about yet. I want to leave it. Taylor May, Salmon, Burbo, Bradley, Leotawa, Stewart.
Ex-player.
I just said all of them are terrible.
Oh, we've still got a mid-range. Okay, we've still got a mid-range. I was like, hang on, what? Who are we not talking about? We've still got a whole mid-range section to go. Jesus Christ.
We're an hour 17 in.
I've got James Schiller in my team for the vibes.
Yeah, I can understand that. Only for the vibes, though. Not for any other reason.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I want to reiterate to people when they're building the teams, if you have players for vibes, that changes the analysis drastically.
It does.
If you send us your team and you're like, I'm big on Karaz or Hammer for the vibes, they get an extra 10-point boost for vibes only.
Oh yeah,
so
no. If you come to me and say, "Oh, he averaged this much over the first 8 rounds, his base power," I don't care. If you say he's got vibes, he's got aura, right, straight in.
Yes, most don't.
I actually went Zeri to Roger Tuivasa-Sheck live before. Didn't advertise
Didn't
it,
tell
but
anyone. Didn't feel like it.
I was just like, I went Curran to Salmon and found myself with some extra money. So I was like, Tuivasa-Sheck.
Right, we need to clean this up now. It's going to be a long fucking 27 weeks. Is it salmon or is it salmon? What are we saying?
Salmon.
So we're saying
I'm calling him salmon. That's how I pronounce it. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Salmon. It's like people that say film, like if they're going to go watch a film.
No, because there was a Pakistani opening batsman. He opened the batting for Pakistan. His name was Salman Butt. Yeah, maybe that's how you pronounce it. Who knows? Maybe we need to get Jamin Salmon to reach out.
John,
you know what?
Just John West, the best.
I know how to pronounce the Supercoach World Cup hosted by Insight Fantasy. That's pretty easy.
Yes, you do.
Supercoach, look, I'm sure you've all heard it by now. The Supercoach World Cup, one of my very few good ideas. Basically, if you consider yourself a Supercoach gun, we all know you do, but are you the best? We aren't talking about just NRL. We're talking about all 4 Supercoach sports. Now, for the first time ever, we are going to find out who is the best in the world at Supercoach through the Insight Fantasy Supercoach World Cup. NRL, AFL, BBL, and NBL, a 12-month marathon. Your rank will be counted as a percentage of total points across all 4 sports, and it's just $10 to enter. next to nothing. And the cash prizes that we're going to be generating are much more than $10. The top 10 players will be all paid out at the end of the NBL season. So basically this time next year. And you ask yourself how to join. I'm getting plenty of DMs about how to join. Simply DM myself, Braino, Mattrix, or the Insight Fantasy accounts on all platforms, or hit the Discord. The link will be in the description.
Cool,
AFL
I'm excited.
season.
I'm feeling pretty good about it.
I was going to say AFL season's here. We're getting a lot of intra-club hit-outs. My Twitter feed is now becoming flustered with AFL news, which doesn't bode well for my Supercoach NRL knowledge. But I'm actually really pumped. Like, and I'm not just saying this because it's my idea, but like genuinely pumped to have an incentive to play other sports, because I'm sure we've all considered it. We've all considered, oh, maybe I'll play cricket this year, and then you'll lose interest after 2 weeks. Or, you know, you want to play NBL, but Andrew Gaze doesn't play anymore, and Andrew Bogut's tweeting some weird stuff on X. Now is a great, excuse to stick through those games. I am looking at moving to Sydney. I might have Braino take me out to a few Kings games. It'll be great to go watch.
Be fun. We'll go.
You can always pop on like the like Insight do all of those competitions anyway. So you can pop across to AFL for the vibes. You can come across to NBL for the vibes. You can come across to BBL for the vibes. Like,
who's your one AFL player that you're picking for vibes?
Ooh.
Jonathan Brown.
He doesn't play anymore, mate.
2006.
Oh no, Charlie Cameron.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Sure.
I am for the vibes, or actually, I had Guthrie in my team, but he just pinged a hammy today, so he's gone. He's done. And I've been a converted North Melbourne fan because a few of the boys have just said that I should follow them.
LDU?
And I don't
have LDU for the vibes.
Yes, I do. I have LDU. I have Colby McKercher as well. Apparently, he's going to be a gun.
Yeah.
But for the vibes, that's a good question.
I wish Nick Nat knew he didn't retire, because he's a pure vibes pick.
He's a vibes pick. That is true.
All right. I'm sure people are sick of our AFL.
No, they don't care about AFL. They don't give a shit.
The bloke called Darcy.
Yeah, Darcy with blonde hair.
Let's talk about the mid ranges. The 600K roughly down guys. RTS, we've spoken about at length for the vibes. I'd love to have a vibe count for this episode as well. I reckon it'd be in the hundreds.
Sorry, can we just reiterate? RTS is actually like a fucking really great pick. Apart from
he is a great pick.
For anyone, I guess, if we've converted a few of these new listeners from the beginner podcast, centers don't usually roam, and what we mean by that is playing both sides of the field and playing almost a second fullback. And if you listen to our beginner podcast, you know how big we are on fullbacks. If RTS, shut up. If RTS is swinging both sides, RTS was really good 4 years ago. He went to rugby, and he was really good in a dog shit Warriors team. He's now playing in a really good Warriors team, and we expect him to be great. He's priced at 53. Him not roaming, I expect him to be about a 53. Him roaming could be anywhere upwards of 70, and that's genuine.
Yeah, he mentioned in the video, it was like, oh, yeah, we spoke about Joey Manu and the way that he plays for the Roosters, and they felt like I could do that as well, and fuck, like that's exciting. Joey Manu was a must-have probably the last 3 years in Supercoach at different points of the season. Because of that, if Joey Manu just sat on his right centre position and just didn't demand the ball, didn't go looking for it, didn't go darting from dummy half, no one would really care too much. The guy's a great player, but the roaming just takes it to another level. So yeah, I'm 100% on board. I'm going to do everything I can to get him in my team this year.
Well, RTS is still 30. Like, I wouldn't be mistaken if he was like 34, 35.
Yeah. I was going to say, if you asked me to guess his age, I would have said 34 because he's been around 30. Forever. But back in the day when he was coming through the ranks at the Roosters and he was playing on the wing and he had to earn that for a while, then like the guy's a weapon and he's been around for a long time, and I think we definitely need to consider him. But we talked about Hammer a little bit. Is there anything to add on Hammer? 600K, 18% owned. Dolphins draw is kind of the centerpiece of this conversation, I guess. So we kind of mentioned that earlier. So if you want to go back in the episode and have a look at what we spoke about with Hammer, you can do that. We haven't spoken about Jacob Carraz, and there's a conversation to be had around 605K, 3% owned Jacob Carraz. I feel like 3% is way too low. Are people a little bit worried about maybe the injury that's been lurking around and the reason why he hasn't been named this weekend, Josh?
Thanks for getting me mid-sip. Yeah, I was really keen on Carraz, just based off all the injuries that he had last year. Big Max King vibes about him, just played through injury. Average 80 points before he decided to break his back. I wish you had that soundbite of Mike Tyson. My back is broken. Spinal.
Final. Yeah, good.
But yeah, a little bit concerned that he had a contact bib on in training last week. So probably just not quite there. I would imagine if this was a round one game, he'd be playing, but you'd like your players to have a little bit of preseason fitness. Carraz is not a guy that he's not a middle forward that needs the air in the lungs. He's a guy that can get through work regardless. But you talk about a guy with amazing base stats. Like, I'd love to look at Carraz's through the first 8 weeks, because it would have been up there with the best. I'm going to try and stall for time while Braino pulls that up. But you'd like for him to have some preseason, but I'm not put off by it. He was in my team up until basically he wasn't named for trials week 2, and the only reason why is because of the RTS news. If RTS was as relevant as he is, I'd probably still have Carraz.
So Carraz base 31 in game 1, pretty ordinary. Then 46, 46, 41, and 40 as a centre wing. That puts you in. So if we look at the last year's base stats alone, Dane Gagai averaged 40. And then we're looking at, that's it. That is it on the season. Carraz, in the first 5 rounds, Carraz would have been equal first in terms of base stats alone.
I guess for anyone not in the loop, he had a fractured back.
Yeah, that'll do it.
It's a pretty
There's a bit going on. There's a bit going on at Canterbury with all the injuries that Max King had, and then you got Jacob Carraz, and I feel like 3 or 4 of those injuries were at training as well. Bit rough.
And this is a guy that can go high too. Like, he had the last 2 years, he's had a score in the 140s. Like, genuinely massive upside as well.
Yep. And when we look at the...
I
was just going to say, when we look at the game against Melbourne as well, at Amy Park, mind you, he scored 148 in 80 minutes. He had 46 base. He scored 2 tries, a couple of try assists as well in this game. Like, the amount of... try contributions in this game. 104. Tell me another centre wing that can get you 148. Greg Marzhew.
That's ridiculous. And Garrett getting spoon-fed by Turbo. Like, I just wanted to my NRL app has decided to die, but I remember this from memory because I got into a mini beef with someone on X. But like, they were like, "Oh, but you know, we need the bull." Me arguments on X. Jeez, come on. They were like, "Oh, what about Carraz just getting pumped by other teams? We need the Dogs to score well." The Dogs were averaging less points a game than the Tigers for the first 6 weeks of the season. They were getting battered by teams, and Carraz was still performing. My NRL app has officially not worked, but I wish I had those scores on hand. But yeah, they were getting pumped week in, week out, and they were scoring less than 14 points a game, and Carraz was still putting up 46 base. And that doesn't include evade stats. He gets plenty of those with tackle busts as well. So the only thing stopping me was the fact that I'm not going to be able to see him this preseason. If I got a game to look at him, I'd be all over him. If you're a gambling man, I think Carraz is a great pick.
Does he get named at centre or wing?
That's the dilemma. If you see him named at centre, I'm probably off him. But on that right wing, I'm all aboard.
Yep. Funny, isn't it? Because when you look in fantasy circles, if he gets named at centre, he could be a go.
They'll love it. The duel. There's no centres. There's no good centres.
Yep. Yeah. Because you could get that centre duel. But it's funny. Attacking stats are king in Supercoach. So that's Jacob Carraz. Herbie Farnworth, boys. I've been waiting this whole fucking episode, hour and 28 minutes to talk about this bloke. I actually still don't know whether I'm going to pick him.
We just skip over him, Mattrix?
Yeah, you should.
No,
if you do it, I'm leaving.
Right.
I will literally cancel this podcast.
I'm glad we had a chat about Herbie Farnworth. Like, you know what? He was good with the Broncos, but the Dolphins aren't the Broncos. So let's talk about Tessie New.
I think we need more Dane Gagai airtime.
Yeah, we do, actually. That's fair. We can go back to him if you want. I'm sure you'd rather talk about Herbie Farnworth.
Give me Herbie. I know, because I know you've been pumping him up all preseason, especially in the DMs. Finally, this is your platform to
maybe the only reason. And look, maybe the only reason I'm looking at him is because I want a differential. I want a player that isn't Hammer, that's 20% owned, around that price point. Now, I agree, 630 odd K is not ideal in terms of what you would like to pay for someone like him, but he had a higher base than Greg Marzhew last year. So you know that there's a little bit of safety in that. We know that the ball is going to go right for the Dolphins more often than it's going to go left, much more often. When you've got Herbie Farnworth and Jermaine Asako on one side, and then you've got Tessie New and Jack Bostock on the other side, I think I know which way the ball's going to go. So, I mean, and also the fact that he doesn't pass is incredibly appealing from a Supercoach perspective as well. So for me, I'm kind of like, when he gets the ball in his hand, like Mattrix said at the start of the episode, the guy's a good runner of the ball. He's not really going to look to pass too much. I don't give a shit about the try assists or the try contributions. I care about the tries. I care about the tackle breaks. The guy's a hard runner of the ball. And, we haven't mentioned this at all in this podcast so far, boys, but he's number one in the hottest 100. And how many extra points do you get to be number one in the hottest 100?
Vibes.
Yeah. Let's just
that
do
is
it
the
for
ultimate
the
vibe.
vibes.
That's the ultimate vibe. Best looking bloke in the NRL. So I rest my case.
I don't know how much feasibility I can take with that list. Max King was not in the top 100. Absolute disgrace.
Did they put his photo forward of when he had a busted eye? Because that would have definitely hurt him.
Had to be.
Yeah.
Like that was the only thing. Dude's a model. Look, in all seriousness, the only thing with Herbie is when I was looking at my team today and I was like, oh, Mike Acebo, he's an option. What about Herbie? He's 630k. I nearly fell over. I nearly fell over, but any set play that gets drawn up for Asako is going to be nice because it stops with Herbie. And he'll just crash ball it. So that's great. And the Dolphins draw is great.
Yeah. I didn't even mention the draw, but very relevant point. It's the same kind of argument as Hammer, I guess. And look, Hammer at fullback is going to get more ball than Herbie will for 32k less.
It depends.
So I understand
it depends
why
what he does with it. Depends what he does with it. Like Herbie runs barnstorming runs. He's going to get a lot. Would you say? I would say with the Dolphins, he's going to get more ball than he got with the Broncos.
Yeah,
I think they're stupid if he doesn't. You've got so many attacking stripe weapons for the Broncos, don't you? Like you got Tony Staggs who did next to fuck all, but like
that's the thing. Like he was on paper he was the center too, but we all knew he was the better center. But they just went to Staggs and Cobbo, which is fine. Like when you got Cobbo, give him ball. I get that, but I think at the Dolphins they're gonna just feed these two, Asako and Herbie. Yeah,
the ball's gonna go right. They're gonna get frostbite on the left, which is why. Which is why I think also that's kind of why I'm off Boston.
Just hold hands.
Let's just hope. I'm very happy with Herbie and Turbo and Herbie. That's a stack. I'm very happy with that.
I thought you were saying Tessie New and Herbie.
Yeah, he's roaming. Tessie's roaming. No, I'm very happy with it with a Hamiso assist to Herbie.
He's still in my team at the moment, but look, if I'm completely honest and I'm not fucking around too much and taking the piss, there's every chance that he is the downgrade to RTS to free up some cash.
You're not just saying it for the sake of saying it. Like you've been on Herbie for the better part of 3 weeks, every day in the DMs.
Yeah, you talked about autocorrect from Brian Tom. Every time I say hey to someone, it just says Herbie. So yeah. I'm big on him, but look, if I have to free up cash, it might be him or it might be a Max King down. I don't know yet, but there's every chance I'm going to need some money at some point when TLT absolutely bends me over next week.
It's going to be a fucking disgrace when we get to TLT round 1. When we get to preview and none of us have Max King.
And all of us have Sean Kepi, the cappuccino.
Oh, mate.
Do we have a nickname for Tessie New? Is he worth talking about?
Tessie Old.
Tessie Glue. 470k. Let's move on. Taylor made 458k. We spoke about him. He's 33% owned for a reason. And just get the bloke in. Hutchison, 354k, 14.5% owned.
I'd rather Jerry, just for some upside.
He's cheaper. Zeri is cheaper as well.
Is he really?
He's 345k.
I'd rather Bronson.
Do we really think like? Look, I will have probably Hutcho if he's there, but like he's not going to start, right? Like I know he started in the trials, but
I think he does. I think Serrano loves him.
Sexton's off the bench again this week.
They brought in Sexton for this. I know they brought in Hutcho too.
I'm a big Sexton guy. I rate Sexton a lot.
Yeah, me too.
I feel like Serrano just loves Drew.
No, it's going to be Sexton and like all these Hutcho truthers or these people that like look at the most owned and then just add it or see a number 7 there.
I'm
not
feeling
gonna
I'm feeling some kind of prop bet.
Go on.
Go on. We call them bolter bets on the Insight Fantasy Sports podcast.
I reckon first round at Magic Round. Yeah, you and I will have to buy the first 2 rounds.
That's about $80, to be honest.
If
$150 too.
If Sexton starts, Mattrix gets first 2 beers at Magic Round for free. Otherwise, he has to buy the first round. Because I just unless Drew just stinks it up, unless he puts on a Brandon Waker masterclass, like I just feel like it's his.
They've shown their hand, haven't they, in these trials? Like, surely if they were going to start Sexton, they would have already started him.
Just do a Brad Arthur and give hands 1 week and Lussick the other week.
Yeah,
but like they've just gone all in on Drew.
On Hutcho. Yep.
I'm sure there's the niggling calf or something.
Yeah, fuck. Wait for TLT.
I don't know, man. I hate it because I'm actually a really big Toby Sexton guy.
Oh, I thought he was good. Like
before we signed Caesar and he was a free agent, I was like, can we make a play for Sexton, please?
But to be fair, though, people are very high on Drew Hutchison. Like, they're massive on him. Like, from apparently people that are close to the club, they say that he is one of the best minds. From a halfback perspective on the in the competition.
I get that. You think Hutcho and Burton are too similar? Like, they both want to do the same thing.
I think Burton wants to do the same thing, but shouldn't.
Can we just start Hutchinson at 6 and Sexton at 7? And just put fucking Burton in the centre.
Burton at centre. Yep.
Like I genuinely think, like, I don't know. I said this on Twitter. I think when Addo Carr's contract is up, you don't renew it. You play Skelton on 1 wing. You play Carraz on the other. You send us a Crichton and Burton, and you may as well get Cleary and Luai. Put them in 6 and 7. See how that goes. I reckon that'd be a good combination. But just run Drew and Toby.
Don't hate it. Don't hate it at all.
And if you're dead set on having Addo Carr in the team, then have Burton, Zeri, have Carraz and Addo Carr, and then you put Crichton at 1.
Plenty to talk about there with the Dogs. No one knows. And we don't either.
That's why they're such a good
week.
Supercoach team, because there's like so many 300k options. There's some 200k options. There's a lot of moving parts. Do we love the Dogs because we're talking about Supercoach? Like, we don't love the Dogs. We would much rather be talking about, all these Panthers players and all these Warriors players, but we're picking out a few because the Dogs are bad. Like,
I'd much rather talk about anyone else than Drew Hutchison. So can we fucking move on?
Yeah. Let me ask you this one question. If you're in draft, how many Bulldogs are you playing in the top? Are you taking in the top 5-6 picks?
I'm not the person to ask.
None. I didn't take any.
None. Like, why would you bother taking anybody from the Bulldogs in the first 5 rounds?
I didn't take anybody in the top 14 rounds.
I think I have a pretty good draft team in the Magic Sponge Patreon League, which was a 10-man. Let me quickly work out how many dogs I've got. I have not many because I picked up the wrong league. This is great audio content. All right, we're finally back into the right league. I have 0 Bulldogs players in my team, so that answers your question.
There you go. And Mattrix had 0 Bulldogs players in his team, so that's the question answered. We're looking at them for Classic only, purely because they're cheap, and that's it.
But
that is the only reason.
I did trade away Payne Haas in a dynasty, and I acquired Max King. So,
hey, I like that.
Take that.
Yeah, we're on the Max King train. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Before we take on these questions from the Insight Unlimited members in the Discord, we've got to give a shout out to Ryan from Astute Newstead. So for those of you out there that have rates that are higher than 6.2%, maybe you want to buy a home. Maybe you've got an existing home you want to refinance. You can reach out to Ryan at Astute Newstead for an obligation and cost-free inquiry. It won't cost you a thing. He's going to go through all your stuff. He'll give you basically the best recommendation to help you either save some money or find your next or forever home. So you can go to his link tree. It's the link is Hammond's Home Finance, and you can use the code INSIGHT when you fill out one of the forms on there, and he will get in touch with you and look after you, and it won't cost you a thing. So hit up Ryan. I can personally vouch for Ryan as well. I'm going through the same process with him right now, and he's been an absolute treat to work with. So
speaking of the great man,
throw it out there.
Would you rather? Oh, sorry. This comes from one Ryan Hammond. Would you rather Asako and 200k center wing on field, or May and Munro? Well, Munro is going to be out. So what other options can we give our great
Tass?
Our friend? So Munro was, how much was Munro? 380?
Yeah.
Munro was
Jesse Arthurs.
late threes.
So I would rather a salmon. I'd rather
Zeri.
I would assume Burbo's in there. But I'm not keen. Obviously, we poo-pooed Asako all night, so we can't go that.
The answer is May and somebody around that price. That's the answer. So you're not putting a 200k centre wing on field unless it's Burbo, and then Taylor May is a must. And
But
then
what if it's
someone
Marzhew?
around.
What if it's Marzhew and 200k? What if it's To'o and 200k? Like that becomes a different situation. Like what if it's Gagai and 200k?
Sorry,
but
Munro's
who-
483k.
Oh shit! Oh, maybe
Yeah.
fantasy is in the 300s.
Fantasy is
That could
330.
be.
So fantasy
There you
he
go.
is 330. So
That makes
Hamo,
sense.
not people to ask, but get Keeney. Keeney is an option for fantasy, and Sean
Zarko and
Russell.
200k. No, you're
Russell.
right though, Mattrix. I think you definitely would take Marzhew for a little bit extra and 200k. But the problem is he's looking at basement price 200k, 204. So now that Stewart isn't an option, there are no other 204k basement price centre wings that you
This
could
is where
pick
you
to play
go.
on
This
field.
is where you go to Val Holmes, isn't it?
Yeah, and then you get
Yeah, it
a
is.
238k bloke. Yeah.
Yeah, I reckon that's Val Holmes. There you go. That answers it. Matty Granger, thoughts on getting... This is an interesting question, actually. I read this and I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, because I've
Thoughts
never
on
seen him
getting
in any
Jack
teams.
Whiten? Thoughts on getting Jack Whiten and starting with him to save a trade and use him as a loop in round 1? Now, obviously, when he comes into the team, there's going to be plenty of ball going down the left with Cody Walker and AJ and Keon Kalamatangi on the left-hand side. So is there any love metrics for Whiten? Would you use a trade or use a starting player in your squad for a guy who's not going to play purely for the loop?
No. I mean, like, I've got people that I have that are on buys in week 1, but I'm not bringing them into my team for the loop. I'm bringing them into my team because I see them in my team in 6 weeks' time. If you feel that way about Whiten, great. I don't feel that way about Whiten. Not just yet. I think there'll be some teething issues. I think that he'll come in and could be an option in 8 or 9 rounds once they work it out. But don't you think Whiten's going to be somebody that they need to work into the team? He's not going to be instantly a gun whisperer.
The draw's putrid. It's Manly, which is great, but he's not playing for that. And then it's the Broncos, the Roosters, Bulldogs, Warriors, and the Sharks, and then a bye, and then Melbourne into the Panthers. Not great.
Doesn't get much worse.
No. I do like the round 10 pickup. That's when the draw swings. But just looking at him last year, I mean, his score was made up of 26 in base and 12 in evade, so a 37 base power. He had a lot of crate, and that crate's going to go down because he's not playing in the halves. He's not going to be dominant. And his scoring was only 6. So his scoring is going to have to go up. Historically, their left centers haven't done very well, but obviously Whiten's in a very different mold to what they've had before. He's priced at a 52. I think if you're looking at Whiten, that round 10 is the time to pick him up. When the combinations click, the draw improves, and you get an idea of what he's going to look like. But I'm just looking at a 37 base power with a 52 average, and you're having to expect that scoring to jump from a 6 to, say, a 20, which is nearly 1 or 2 attacking returns a game, which for the first 7-8 rounds, I just don't think it's possible with their draw.
Yep. So let's move on to Dan Eckert's question. What is most important to look at when you're picking a center wing? Does a dual position play a role? Are we looking at base stats? Are we looking at attacking upside? How do you approach center wing metrics?
I've got an opinion when it comes to dual position. If there's 2 people that are the same price that I have the same opinion, I take the dual position. I don't actively look out for dual position players for the sake of a dual position players. It becomes very handy around Origin. It becomes very handy at certain times throughout the year. But I don't add a dual position player because they're a dual position player. If I'm looking at Burbo and Bostock, then maybe I add Burbo because he's dual position player and he's 40k cheaper. But that's only because I can't make my mind up, and there's a few factors that swing it that way. It's not because he's a dual position player.
Do you have any thoughts on this, Josh?
So for me this year, I'm taking centre wing differently. In previous years, I've always been an advocate for as cheap as possible, but with what it, on the surface appears to be as little options as possible in terms of cheapies, I'm looking for consistency. So I'm never looking at starting with like an AJ. AJ is a great guy to have mid-year when your team is deep enough for you to bench him. I'm not looking at benching a guy that is 650k in round 2 because they have a bad draw. It's just not something I'm keen to do. So all my centre wings I'm paying up for, I'm very happy to start. But towards the middle portions of the year, we attack matchups a little bit more favourably. With your bottom dollar players, they pick themselves, obviously. But I probably put more weight into back rower duels just because we're going to get more consistency out of them. Burbo has a worse draw than Bostock. But will Burbo go? If Burbo is fit, will he go for a 14? Probably not. So early on, I'm trying to minimize as many of these 15-point scores as possible because it really stunts your cash growth early on. So for me, it's just trying to get. I'm not looking for Burbo to make 300k in 8 weeks, but I'm also not looking for him to be a Franklin Pele and lose me money. So target your upside mid-season. Just try and build some kind of foundation early on.
Yeah, off the back of that, I guess you kind of sometimes as a super coach have a preference between base stats and attacking upside, and I think it's a really fine balance between the safety of base stats and maybe starting with the safety of base stats and kind of building your team around a really kind of middle of the ground. You're going to avoid, like Josh said, the Bostocks who get you 10 and 15 points. Those players that purely rely on scoring to accumulate their points. So I've always been someone, and the way I've played the game has always been base stat focused. Maybe that's a little safer than chasing attacking upside all the time, but maybe I just like relying on or knowing what I'm going to get in base more often than not. It's kind of the way I play the game, but yeah, I completely agree with what you both said. I think more often than not, I think we're kind of leaning towards making sure that you set a really nice, stable base and get established early on and get your team established, and then you can kind of start to take more risks and focus on the draw a little bit more at the back end.
In saying that, though, if you take risks early with these high upside guys and it pays off, you're off on the right foot because your cash in is going to be huge while everyone else is playing pickup. So it's really how you want to play the game. We're not saying that it's a bad approach to go with high risk. It's just not something that I want to do mentally because I take this game way too seriously. So I want to be more mentally stable on a Monday morning. But if you get these high upside guys right, if you get Jack Whiten right, going back to the last question, and he brains it, and he's draw proof, then everyone's going to be scrambling. He's going to be 600k, 700k, and we're sitting here going, well, Burbo's shit. What do we do?
Yeah, but those guys, you've got to be okay with being 45,000th in round 6 if you're selecting Jack Whitens, with a small chance that you're in the top 1,000 then, because, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck for the same price is, to me, a lot safer option.
Yeah. Also, Jack Whiten's got less vibes.
A lot less vibes.
Do you say Jack Byton?
Hey.
Last question from Brent. Now, this isn't a CTW question per se, Supercoach-wise, but thoughts on AJ Brimson at centre? Now, he's likely going to get the duel, whether that be before the season starts or whether that be at the round 6 change.
He'll get it before it starts.
Yeah. So, what are our thoughts on AJ Brimson? How does that play out for him? Because when he gets the duel, maybe does he become relevant, Josh? How do you playing him?
Well, he's also got vibes. Big vibes guy. Not quite Herbie levels of Hot 100, but he was definitely there. The question then becomes does he roam? And that's what we talk about with these centers, with these fullbacks / centers. There's going to be a lot of pressure on Keeney's shoulders early on, and maybe Des does look to Brimson and just goes, "Hey, look, can we give this kid a bit of a spell? Can you help him out as much as possible?" How much is he off the top of your head? Do we have his
587?
Okay, so he's RTS. He's just a slightly more expensive RTS with a better draw. Yeah, I
still go RTS.
I still go RTS too, but I can if you're in the Mattrix if you're in the Braino camp of being I'd love to get Hammer, but I want to just be a little bit different. I think AJ's going to be great. really high on him in
yeah.
draft because a lot of people in draft,
Mm.
especially, a lot of people are taking a fullback and then just forgetting that he's going to be center wing.
Yeah. I think draft
So-
is value because you know he's going to get that duel. So
I think
that could help.
I think I took him in the 5th or 6th round in draft. And everyone was like, I don't because people don't realize they're like, oh, why'd you take AJ so high when you have Tedesco? And you're like, you're a moron. He's going to get duel. And they're like,
where's he
shit.
playing?
Yeah. I think with the fact that Jaden Campbell's out, I think that bodes really well for AJ. Because I do think Des Hasler will rely on him a little bit more just to help out Kenny a little bit more.
Yeah, that probably answers Brent's question. He had another question: targeting the high work rate guys or the players that don't do as much but play for top tier scoring teams.
Just answer that.
We just answered the question, so that's good. We've covered that. But that brings us to the end of the questions and an hour and 50 minutes into the centre wing pod because there's so much to talk about, and we love to dribble a fair amount of shit, don't we, Mattrix?
Look, we do. Look, not my record with beers, but I had an enjoyable time with you guys.
It's good fun. We enjoyed it.
And we've missed plenty of players. If we spoke about everyone, this podcast would be a Hello Sports 7-hour preview special. It would be a lot. And my partner's backside is in the camera there, so I'm just going to cover that up.
I was having a look.
So yeah, if we just talked about everyone, then we'd be here for years and years and years.
No.
I think you guys are smart enough to work out who we like and who we don't like. Pods with upside are great. Jack Whiten, not so great.
And if you have any questions about a player that's
and let us, pop in the comments and let us know who we missed.
I mean, I'm sure we've missed players that you've got in your team. So ask in the comments, let us know, or even hop in the Discord and ask us in there because there's plenty of free content in there and an awesome community that you can join that you can chat Supercoach with all year round now that the World Cup's on. Join the World Cup. You can do all those things as well. Hit subscribe and like. We would appreciate that. But our lives are coming up. Our weekly live will be on Tuesday night every single week when TLT drops for the first time. And I can tell you what, there's going to be a fair bit to talk about when that drops.
We're going to sock.
We're going to be talking about hot and cold players. We're going to actually play a few games on the podcast this year, which is going to be cool. We're going to do guess the NRL player. Josh, do you want to explain a few of these games? Because most of them are your idea. We're pretty boring.
Yeah, pretty simple. I mean, guess the NRL player. I'll have a player in mind. Your Mattrix will be like, does he play for a Queensland team? And I'll go, yes. It's like almost like guess who. It's just yes or no questions. We'll rotate each week. I'll have a player. Mattrix will have a player. Braino will have a player. We'll do some trivia. What center wing had the highest base stats from round one? Stuff like that. And you guys can play at home too. Braino and I will also be at the Star for the non-Las Vegas season launch party hosted by Daily Telegraph. Mattrix will be there in spirits. So for any of you guys that are there, come say hello to us. We're not on the expert panel, unfortunately. But yeah, it's gonna be a good time. Really, really keen for the season. And I guess for anyone, I'll be a bit of a shameless plug. I've paired up with a radio station this year to do a Supercoach / fantasy podcast. It's called the Super Fantasy Coach Podcast. Very original. That will be dropping in the next couple of days. We'll be recording that once a week, going over all the relevant Supercoach and fantasy topics as well. This is my passion project, Insight Fantasy Sports. My goal this year was to help these guys out as much as possible. I'm just doing this on the side, but I'd appreciate your support on that as well. That's sort of got everything I've got to plug. We'll do a betting segment as well during the week. Obviously, we're not promoting anything, but I think it'll cost us $10 a week. We'll give 3 selections each. We'll track the multi, and that'll just pay for beers at the end of the season.
That's it.
Have I missed anything?
Trip. No, that's it. And whenever we get an end of season trip from all the winnings from the Punters Club, we'll have to let everybody know where we are so that we can have a few beers with the viewers.
I mean, Mattrix has got some hookups with the Broncos boys. Maybe we can get Billy Waltz on a boat. We've seen Mattrix hang out with him in the off season.
He knows a few blokes, doesn't he?
Yeah, maybe we can get in the dressing room one day.
Hey, I know that you know Herbie Farnworth as well, so just pass on my love and tell him I'm picking him this year and that he needs to do really well. And
he's dead to me now.
I mean, Max King is well aware of the preseason hype, so I'm very fortunate that Max is very receptive to a few of my DMs. So he understands the weight on his shoulders this year for Supercoach, and hopefully, I'm not going to name names, but I've got a few NRL players that do ask for advice. So Supercoach in the NRL is way more prevalent than you think it is.
Does Max King know that you dumped him out of your team?
I haven't. We haven't brought
I'm
that up
going to
yet.
tell him. I'm going to tell him. Our new sponsor, Swish, is going to send you a message.
Oh, mate.
Yeah, guys, we're approaching 2-hour territory, so
Yeah.
that'll do. Thanks
get a little
for
crazy.
thanks for watching and tolerating us this whole time.
It's just us
We've
three
had
talking.
fun.
Everyone else has stopped listening.
Yeah, they're done by now. But no, thanks if you made it this far. Full credit to you. You've done actually really well. But hopefully it sets up your centre wing. We'll be back for TLT, or the Sunday wrap will be the next pod that comes out, where we talk about all the trials and the results there. And then TLT will be the next pod after that. We'll do a full back pod as well before the season starts. So plenty coming your way. Make sure to hit subscribe and like if you like the content. And we will see you next time for the Sunday wrap up of Trials Week 2. Catch you then.
Cheerio.